Welcome to the design document guideline series for data platform. This is a short series of videos where I'll be talking about the various aspects of creating a design document. In this lecture, we'll cover the one of the most important sections, that is the design considerations. Now, when you're creating any design document, that is basically you're trying to come up with a technical design or a technical solution for this new ecosystem, right? As part of that, one important thing is to understand what are the various types of design considerations that you should keep in mind while designing this system. Now, basically, there are two things that you should remember. Okay, one is what you're trying to do. Okay, that is what is the requirement, what is the overall objective, what is the overall goal of this particular engagement or the project, and at the same time, you should also look back and see what currently you have in the existing system. Right now, this applies to the systems where you already have a something which is already built and you are trying to modernize it. You are trying to re-architect that solution. In such cases, right, your design considerations should be not just based on the new system that you are trying to build, okay, but also based on the existing one. So when it comes to the new system, right, what you should consider is what are the overall requirements, what are the limitations and challenges of this new system that you're trying to build, what are the key learnings and observations, as well as the existing system, right? You should try to understand what are the key pain areas, right? What are the challenges in the existing system also, and whether you have done any POCs or MVPs, right? Before you start any new engagement, most of the times people would do certain POCs. They'll do some workarounds and see, right, if what works well from them. So reuse all this, right? All this R&D which is already done. You don't want to go through these things again. You don't want to conduct the POCs again because the internal teams would have already done that at some point of time. Also look at the if whether there has been any assessment done, right? Many times I've seen, right, before embarking in any data project, right, a lot of teams do assessment, an overall assessment of their current tech landscape, whether um, to understand what are the key challenges, or whether it would scale to the the data growth for incoming years. So if such assessments are already being done, go through that. There might be some assessment done by external consultants also. Some of the teams do that. So look at the reports that they have generated, the assessment reports, study that, or also look at the overall data strategy and the governance principles, right? So these are all the important factors that you should go through by compiling the design considerations. Now, what you can do is you can divide these, right, into various aspects, right? There can be different components, right, while building any data ecosystem. So your design considerations can be specific to these. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll go through trees one by one, right? Let's say the data sources. Now, is it a batch source or a streaming source, right? This is a very important design consideration, because based on this, you will have to build a system. If you are only dealing with a batch system, which would not be the case in today's times, right? But previously, some 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right, most of the systems are only batch systems or EOD systems. But nowadays, most of the teams would be, most of the enterprises would be trying to bring a streaming data source, real time data source. So have a look at that. If it's a streaming system, look at the latency. Okay, again, this is very important point, because this will decide whether you want to build a actual real time system, a streaming system, or a near real system is fine. Near real time, as in if there is a delay of 5 minutes, is that okay? Because this would make a big difference while designing the system. So anything that is going to impact your design, okay, that all those key considerations you have to go through and compile and list them down, document them. Our data volumes is another one. Again, how does it impact? Let's say you have an historical data volume that is in petabyte, right? You cannot really move this data using the cloud native services like AWS DMS or Azure Data Factory. You will need something like Snow devices, right, to move the data if you are working with the AWS ecosystem or the AWS stack. Data ingestion, how are you going to ingest the data? Is it an API based data ingestion? Okay, so most of these SaaS providers now have APIs and you'll be ingesting data from there. So why this is required is, how do you want to ingest this data? Would you be see, this will all eventually help you to decide what kind of ETL tool you want to use, right? Do you want some of the modern data stack ETL tools like Fivetran or Airbyte, okay, which can do all these things, whether of identifying the deltas, getting the incremental data, or you want to use something that you already have? Let's say you already have invested in Informatica or Talent, then can you go ahead and still use that, right? So these are the design considerations that will help you to decide on that. CDC is an important key design consideration that you should look at, whether the source system has the ability to send you the deltas. If not, then how do you want to extract that data? Again, whether it is for a real time system, that is where, right, different kind of tools are available in market. So list down all of these, because this is going to help you uh, to decide your tool stack. So design considerations, right, this topic uh, will help you to decide on the tool stack. So see, the intention is not just to document these in a design document, right? See, why we are creating this design document is so that you can go through all these important points and you document them. So there are two things. Documentation is one thing. At the same time, it is important that you don't miss out on all these key points. That's the reason you have this structured process called designing the system, right? And design documentation is just reflection of all those thoughts, all these key points that you have captured. And the third thing would be the data processing. Again, the very important point, whether it's an ETL or ELT kind of a system that you are trying to build. Based on that, you'll have to decide on your tool stack. Now, sometimes it may also happen that the tool stack is already decided because there has been some investment. So based on that also, you can see whether you want to go for an ETL or ELT kind of a process. To give an example, let's say you already have Snowflake. Since you already have Snowflake, you can go for an ELT kind of a design, right? You will extract the data, load it into Snowflake, and use the power of Snowflake for transformation. So it's not just that these design considerations are going to drive your tech stack that you want to use. The tech stack that you already have can also drive your design considerations. Okay, if an investment has already been made, you may well want to stick to that. Yes, it may happen that the organization or the enterprise is open for newer tools and technologies, so you can consider it this time. um, Data storage is very important point for any data analytics platform, whether you want to build a warehouse or a lake or a combination of a warehouse and a lake, or the current trend, right, where enterprises have started building a lake house. So based on that, what is the what are you trying to build is an important design consideration. So okay, uh, uh, it also depends on what you currently have, how much data you have, whether you have structured data or unstructured data, right? See, if you are just dealing with structured data, which again uh, may not be relevant in today's times, right? Everyone wants to have their unstructured data also analyzed. But if you're just dealing with structured data, you can go for a warehouse. If you're dealing with both structured and unstructured data, you can have a combination of a lake and a warehouse, or you can go for the lake house, which is the current trend. Now Databricks has a very good solution. You can do the same thing with Azure and AWS and Snowflake also. Again, these are the design choices, but this section is all about the considerations that will help you to make this design choice. Data consumption, how are you consuming the data, whether you are running any BI workloads or AI workloads or both. Based on that, you will have to come up with your storages, right, warehouse at the data lakes to support these kind of workloads. Are you also doing any interactive querying? Then you will need a service which can do that. If you're in AWS world, you can use things like Athena. Okay, if you're using Databricks, you can use Databricks SQL for interactive querying. Whether you want to also share the data with the outside world, right? So that sharing is also an important consideration, right? Based on that, you will have to make a design choice. I think this is where some of the new technologies would come into place, right? If you're using Snowflake, they have very good sharing mechanism, but then it's proprietary data. If you want something which is an open source, you can still go with the Databricks Delta sharing kind of a thing. Data operations, data governance, data security are the other important key considerations. In data operations, it will be more of how you are going to orchestrate and monitor your data. Do you already have any tool which is being used for monitoring? Can you continue using that? Do you want to continue using that? Are there any challenges with that, or you want to look at some of the new tools related to data observability? Right, data observability is one of the important trends in the current data world. Whether you want to go with any of these tools, or you want to use something which is internally developed for that. Data governance has a lot of emphasis in today's times. How you are going to share the data, who is going to access the data, right? Whether these are internal users or external users also, because the strategy would be different for internal users, it would be different for external users. How you want to control the access, whether it's a fine grained or it's a coarse grained, whether you want to do a table level, column level, row level access control also, because then you will need those tools for that, right? Some of the tools may not support all of these. See, most of the cloud warehouses have support for even a column level access control now, but you need to document these so that you can have the right tools in place. Metadata management at the same time is also important. Is there any solution available? How you are doing all those things, or you want to use some external tools for cataloging? All these things you can capture here. Data security is very, very important, mainly for the cloud ecosystems. Are there any specific compliance requirements, right? Whether they're like GDPR, PCI DSS, all those, right? You should document these so that accordingly, when you are designing the system, right, you can take care of that. Like case in point is whether you are masking your data, right, where when you are writing it, whether you're accessing it, or when you're handling PI data, or for GDPR, the right to forget, right? Do you have the design in place, or do you have the tools in place that can delete the data that you need? So yeah, that was the final point, data security, in this design consideration section. You should document all these based on whatever analysis you have done, whatever assessment you have done, any R&Ds, any discussion with the existing teams, any discussion with the external consultants who have done the assessment, right? So document all these things. These are all very, very important, because based on this, you're you are going to drive the design. Based on this, you are going to finalize the design. So important, it is important that you document your overall design considerations.